and welcome to this week's episode of Powerful Stuff. You guys, I just hopped off the plane at LAX with the dreams in my cardigan. Actually, it was my dad's Navy bomber jacket, but I just got back from San Francisco and I was there for a friend's baby shower. I feel like every time I go there, it's just this like amazing socializing with all my deep friends from college and a whole other community there. And so while I was there this week, I thought, you know what? Let's bring powerful stuff to the San Francisco people. They deserve it. They demand it. Let's do it. And so I led a powerful stuff at this awesome venue called the Fate Collective. And I had about 20 something people come and do our, powerful stuff workshop, be the catalyst where people got to mastermind on what they're ready to become, what they're ready to attract. And this was super cool because I had old roommates there, past clients, friends of friends, Gerta, who was on Powerful Stuff a few weeks ago, giving us the ins and outs of the art of negotiation. And everyone looked at what they're ready to attract in their life. How are they blocking it? What self-limiting beliefs are getting in the way? And then we cleared that out with some breath work and meditation. Got to bring a little breath work to San Francisco. You can take the girl out of LA, but can you take the LA out of the girl? You know what I mean? And then after the breathwork meditation, we did an ideal scene, which you guys have talked or heard me talk about a lot and hopefully have done a lot yourself, where it was like, what are you, doing in this vision of you having this thing already? How does that feel? How are you stepping into that? And then I had people mastermind in groups of 3 to 4 on how they could take action on that right now versus waiting for something to happen, because we all know that manifestation without action is just wishful thinking. So they mastermind with people and we did tactical takeaways around it. Like some person I asked, okay, how are you going to step into that this week? How are you going to be the catalyst with this thing? And they were like, oh, I'm going to let this thing go. I'm just going to let it go more. And I'm going to chat with more people who have gone through similar relationship dynamics. And we're going to talk about it more. And I'm like, that's great. That's amazing, but it's still kind of vague. So let's put some action around it. What if you had a dinner with these people who had also been through something similar? What if you all wrote a letter to that person or that relationship dynamic and then lit it on fire safely together, And she's like, oh my gosh, I love that. I'm going to do that. So it's like, when we think of these things of I'm going to let this thing go, or I'm just going to be more open, what does that actually mean? And how can you create some tactical takeaway for that? But you guys, this powerful stuff is not about that. I just had to catch you guys up on it because we're besties and that's what friends do. We catch each other up on our highlights. This week I was like, what should I tell the Powerful Stuff community about? And I was thinking about some stuff I've been talking to a lot of my coaching clients with recently, which is the power of yes and. The power of yes and. And it's something that we talk about in Powerful Stuff sometimes, but we're really going to go into it today. We're really going to yes it. We're really going to and it. We're really going to yes and it. So what, Meredith, do you mean by yes and? Well, I want to start off by saying yes and is something that is very common in improv. In the improv world, if you've ever done an improv class, they talk about how yes and is one of the fundamentals to building a great improv scene with other improv players or partners, because yes and essentially in improv means you don't shoot anyone else's reality or suggestions down as you're building the scene. If you're both performing a scene and someone's like, oh, and then our uncle Sam told us to go fetch the firewood, and you're like, he's not our uncle, that kills the scene and the audience feels awkward for you both because they don't know who to believe and you're not agreeing with each other. It's awkward for you guys. It's awkward for the audience. There's awkward turtles running rampant. So they talk about yes and of agreeing with the other person and then even building on it. So yes, Uncle Sam did tell us to go fetch the firewood. And it was really peculiar that he asked us that, given that he already has a garage full of it. I'm glad we went on that adventure together, or something like that. You know what I mean? Where you're adding to the person's idea and you're affirming their reality. And when I talk about yes and in the personal development space, I talk about it in the sense of allowing two things to be true at the same time, two contradictory things, let's say. And I've had a few coaching sessions recently where yes and has been really powerful, because we can really notice where self-limiting beliefs are running the show when we force ourselves into a black or white scenario around something, or an ultimatum. Like, I can either get paid a lot, or I can enjoy my life and have a fulfilling job. Like, they don't coexist together. And maybe that's a story you were telling yourself, and that's the kind of things that you think of for your financial future, for your professional future, versus like the yes and of that would be like, I can, get paid really well, and I can be doing what I love. And so usually when I talk to clients about, self-limiting beliefs, we look at where that dichotomy is happening, where that either or is happening, either this or that. Either my partner agrees with me on everything, or we're not meant to be together. Where are these like super polarizing pendulum swings coming from? And what is usually going on there is, our inner child craves consistency and safety and predictability. And these black or white areas in our life where it's either this or that is very predictable, and it is very safe, right? Because internally we know either this is going to happen or this is going to happen. And so we like to force ourselves into a black or white scenario. And that can be true in like dating, or in making assumptions about like friends after, or if we need to have a communication with them about something, but we're like putting it off or procrastinating. So we're like, oh, they wouldn't understand anyways, right? Either they like fully get it, or they don't, and they're not meant to be in my life, because it's so scary to like exist in the gray area in between the black or white, which is the area of uncertainty, which is the area of two truths being true, two truths being true at the same time, because it's uncomfortable. We don't know how someone else is going to respond. So yes, and can be scary, both in kind of holding two beliefs to be true at the same time internally, and it can be true like in our relationship dynamics with other people, whether it's friends or partners or parents. And I'll give you a few examples of how I've sorted through this in my own life. So like I'll have something going on with Spencer, like one of our kerfuffles, as I like to say. And maybe it's like the old extreme Meredith would be like, either he agrees with me or he doesn't love me, right? Because that's like what internal little Meredith, who needs to be reminded that she's enough, needs. Like, she needs that validation. Either he agrees with me or he doesn't love me, right? And that's also how I'd operate in past relationships. Like, either he's like obsessed with me or he doesn't love me. And then I'd force an ultimatum, and that would freak the guy out, and then they would leave, and it was this whole cycle. Whereas the yes and with Spencer, it's like, yes, we can have a disagreement, and we can still love each other. Yes, we cannot see eye to eye, and we can be committed to growing and figuring it out. And it is scary, and it is uncomfortable, because that means we have to have tough conversations or sit through the other person's viewpoint when we want to just be right. And we have to create space, and we have to create allowance for it. And it can literally feel like a constriction in our chest when we're having to operate in this gray area, because we're not used to it. And when we're not used to it, it's like, oh, like, do I have to do this? But you know what, guys? It's always so exhilarating. It's so powerful on the other side. I mean, and that yes and is just one example. I think like what I have my clients do when we realize self-limiting beliefs is, and this is what we're going to do together today, I want you to think of an area where you have been operating in either or, like the black or the white. Maybe it's in dating. Maybe it's in what type of relationship you think you could have. Maybe it's in a friendship dynamic that you have that's a little uncomfortable right now. Maybe it's in a belief that you have about yourself and your future. So what is that either or? And maybe there's a few. So go ahead and just take a few minutes to think of those, to write those either ors out, like either this or that. Either I do it perfectly or I don't do it at all, right? That can also be like with perfectionism. Either I like come first in this thing or why bother? Like, so what are these either ors that are kind of running in the background? Go ahead and write them down. And as you're writing these either ors down, notice like what the belief is there. For instance, like the either or around perfectionism of like, you know, either I do it perfectly or I don't do it at all, comes from, is a subtle form of procrastination. And if we trace the procrastination back around the perfectionism, where is the fear coming? Either it's perfect or I don't do it at all. We can say, oh, my standards are really high, I'm just a perfectionist. But actually that could be a fear of not being enough, because I fear that if I'm not enough, or I fear that because I'm not enough, like as if you believe you're not enough, right? I fear that if like, because I'm not enough, like if it's not perfect, then it's unacceptable. I'll be found out. What will others think, right? So those either ors would be around the fear of not being enough. So just take a few minutes to sit with that. And then once you make your list, I would ask yourself, what is this either or limiting you from? What is it robbing you of operating in this way? But also, what does your inner child feel like it's protecting them from? So I guess that's a 2-part question, guys. You guys are so smart. You can handle it. What is it robbing you from? And also, what does your inner child feel like it's protecting you from, right? Just acknowledging your inner child, as I like to say in all the other episodes, right? Acknowledge that inner child. Let them know that they're, you get it. You understand. You're here to listen. It doesn't mean that, you have to believe them or hop on board with that belief system, but just acknowledge why do they feel like it keeps them safe? And then what is it robbing you of? What is operating in that way robbing you of? Maybe in the relationship sense, right? Like either I find a fairy tale romance or it's not meant to be. Like that's robbing you of like true multidimensional, multifaceted love, right? Of love that's messy, of love where you can have arguments and still commit to each other, which is even more beautiful than never fighting at all, right? It's because you continue to come back to each other. So, what is it robbing you of? Okay. Now that we've acknowledged those questions, we're going to go into the yes and. And like I said, the yes and can be for emotions. It can be for how you feel about other people. So looking at those either ors, I want you guys to write what the yes and is. And again, it's like the example I gave with the relationship stuff, right? Either we don't fight at all or we're not meant to be together. It's like, yes, we can fight and we can still love each other. Yes, we can disagree and we can still be committed to figuring things out. So go through your either or list and write out what those yes ands are. Just write them out. And it might feel uncomfortable. And when you feel that discomfort, just noticing it and just breathing even more deeply into it, creating even more space for yourself as you go through this yes and. And the really beautiful thing here, it's like, I need to pull up my poem to read you guys, but it's like magic exists in the gray area. Like all magic happens in the gray area. It's not the black or white, because the gray area is like the new soil, the fertile growth, the actually showing ourselves kind of like, I do deserve to have, both things be true at the same time. Both things can be true at the same time. I'm safe enough to exist in a world where both things are true at the same time. And in the gray area, it allows us to not force an outcome. It allows us to be curious. It allows us to wait and see. It sends a signal to our subconscious of like, I trust myself enough to know that I've got me in any situation, right? And so when we exist in the gray area and we don't exist in the black or white, because as we previously discussed, it like helps our inner child feel safe because they can predict the outcome. But as we exist in the gray area, it's showing self-trust because we're telling our inner child and we're reminding them. And this is part of the daily practice around the yes and, right? Reminding your inner child and inner self, I've got you. I'm not going anywhere. Here are all the other times in uncertain situations I got you. And like, we're safe to exist in this uncertainty together and see what happens. And as you breathe through that, not only does that build self-trust, that builds high self-worth as well, because you're sending the signal to your subconscious. Yeah, like I said, I've got me. And then we can let things play out with curiosity. You can have more of a sacred pause when someone says something that triggers you. And you can say, like, here's what I would usually do, or I would usually snap, but I'm going to respond in the gray area. I'm going to respond with curiosity. Like, yes, what they said was hurtful, and they're also hurting. Or yes, what they said is hurtful, and I also feel for them, right? Versus like just snapping back and being like that horrible person. That's just an example, guys. And I can't tell you how many times like yes and saved my relationship with Spencer at the beginning of our relationship. Because times where I usually would have shut down when I heard certain things about him are times that with the power of the yes and I got curious. Like, yes, he can have this past and he can still be committed. Or like, for instance, he told me he was poly in Vancouver for a year to try it out, like polyamorous. And I'm very much monogamous. And so the old Meredith would have been like, oh my gosh, either he's like poly and doing all these things with all these other people, or he's like monogamous and totally trustworthy, right? But then the yes and Meredith, who was practicing being open, remaining in the gray area, I got curious. Oh, is poly something you're still interested in? What did you learn from that? What does that mean to you now? Like, are you willing to be monogamous with someone, right? And it turns out when I didn't shut down or place a judgment or an assumption on him, it was actually a deepening moment for our relationship of him saying like, this is what I learned from being poly. I'm actually not interested in it in the long run. I actually am looking for a monogamous relationship. And it helped me like stay open and actually deepen connection with Spencer. So that's just a little example. Little side note for you guys. But so as I was saying, go ahead and write those yes ands and let it rip. Like if you had an old belief of like, I'm not enough and the perfectionism stuff, what does the yes and look like, for example? The yes and could be, like, yes, I can get this thing done and I can be proud of myself if it's not perfect still. Or yes, it doesn't have to be perfect and I can still be proud of myself for doing it. And those are just some like opposites of perfectionism, for example. So go ahead and do that. Breathe into it as you write it. And then we're going to go ahead and do a little meditation. But I'm just going to pause this because I noticed one of my besties was calling me. So as you guys write, I'm going to pause this. We'll be right back after this short break. Okay, guys, we are back. I am meeting my friend for a little new moon meditation moment on the beach after this. It's going to be so powerful. Okay, so now that you've made your yes and list, we're going to do a really brief meditation that is going to be so short because I want you to be able to know how to do it on your own as well, because you are an empowered, powerful sovereign being, and we love that. So I just want you to close your eyes for a second, and we're going to imagine what this thing is that you're creating that yes and around. And just imagine almost like you're walking into the middle of a Venn diagram, right? There's the black area on one side of one of the beliefs around it, of the either or, and there's the white area on the other side of the other belief of the either or. And then you walk into the middle of the Venn diagram in this mystical, magical gray area of the gray soil of the yes and. And in this gray area, you see your inner child. And you invite them to come in and hold your hands. And you just ask them if there's anything that they're afraid of being in this gray area. It's totally fine. What are they afraid will happen if they allow both things to be true at the same time? Just giving them a second to answer as you hold their hands lovingly. And then as you hold their hands lovingly, taking a deep breath in, breathing in the yes of one of the things, one of the truths, and exhaling out the and. Breathing in the yes of that truth, creating space in your rib cage, holding at the top, feeling that space enter all the way up to your third eye, exhaling the and. You're still holding your inner child's hands as you both breathe in that yes and you exhale the and. And as you continue breathing in the yes, creating more space, imagining both coexisting at the same time, exhaling the and, starting to feel this gray soil activate beneath y'all's feet. Feeling it activate, lifting both of you, breathing even more spaciousness into every cell of your being. And as you're breathing in this yes and exhaling this and, imagining beautiful flowers starting to sprout up in this gray area, creating new space for possibility. And as it creates this new space and you keep breathing in this yes and, you look down and open your eyes again to see your inner child has transformed into your highest self. With this safety and self-trust and knowing of your enoughness, your inner child, your highest self existing there at the same time, looking at that version of you right now in total trust and relaxed confidence as you breathe in one more yes and exhale one more and. And then as you look at them, asking them, what is the perfect thing I can do this week to integrate this yes and to exist in this gray area? Trusting whatever they say, thanking them, feeling the spaciousness of this yes and, taking a deep breath in and exhaling it out, letting it go. Another deep breath in and exhale, opening your eyes, coming back into this space, hopefully feeling the spaciousness of that yes and. It's so good to write out a yes and, guys. And that was also probably the first time I used y'all in a meditation. I'm like, my Southern twang just came out. What can I say? But TLDR, I'm all about a yes and life. And I know one of my friends, Justine, has it on her Instagram bio too, like yes and she's also just one of the most magical humans who has created a wondrous life. She was a marine archaeologist doing deep dive shipwrecks. Now she builds community around the world, goes to Burning Man every year. But she has on her Instagram bio a yes and life, which is just like anything is possible, right? If we don't, this is the way it always is, or this always happens to me, right? We're operating in an either or. And when we shift into the yes and, that's the magic. And that turns on the what if energy. What if this happened? What if it could be this way? What can become possible? And so the journey of that is just reminding your inner child they are safe to expand with you, reminding them of all the times, kind of like when we did our imposter syndrome episode, reminding them of all the times you were in an uncertain area before and it worked out. You've got you. You are strong enough to exist in the gray area. And I want to see really quickly while I have you guys here. Okay. I literally am trying to pull up this poem that I wrote to see if I can find it for you guys. Black or white was all I knew, up or down, but never through. From the uncertainty, I'd stray away, but magic exists inside the gray. Okay, I couldn't find it on my phone, but I remember that verse from what I wrote about existing in the gray area. So just to recap, step one is just acknowledging all of those either ors. Where are you either this happens or this happens? This always happens to me. It can't be this way. write out those either ors, get them out, notice what belief is ruling those, and then have that compassion for that inner child. That belief is always, what are they afraid of? How does this help reinforce a small narrative, or smaller narrative that you're now ready to let go of? And then write the yes and alternative to that. And then breathe in the yes, exhale the and, feel the spaciousness of both of those things being true at the same time. And again, yes and can be true for complicated emotions. It allows us to come to a place of acceptance if it's around complicated emotions, which a great episode to revisit for that would be my acceptance plus choice episode. Because when we get to a place of acceptance, we can neutralize things, we can see it clearly, and then we can make an empowered choice forward. So the yes and could be like, yes, I'm angry at this friend, and I also love them, right? But allowing the space to somatically feel that in your body, to stretch that, whether you're breathing, it's actually also great to do while you're stretching, breathing in, lifting up, yes, exhale, folding, and, right? That lift and that stretch at the same time. And then what is that thing that you can do this week to embody the yes and? Wow, there you guys have it. I hope you live a yes and week. Please email me or DM me, what is your yes and that you're claiming this week? I would love to hear from you. And as always, if there's other episodes that you want to hear, topics, please let me know. And also, guys, I have an exciting announcement. So as many of you know, I launched my 8th group coaching program of the Upgrade for the next 3 months. And usually I just work with one-on-one clients for 6 months at a time, but I actually decided to open up my one-on-one clients for a special 3-month container from now until the end of October before I go traveling for 4 months. So usually my one-on-ones are 6 months. So if you are listening to this and you're like, Meredith, I'm ready to go deep, I am ready to dive into the yes and life, and I want you alongside the journey, you can email me at themeredithbaker.com. We can set up a discovery call. I would absolutely love to chat with you. And if you guys are in LA, I hope to see you at a Best Morning Ever or at our Powerful Stuff Live this Friday night at Moss. So thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you all for being here, and I will see you next week for more powerful stuff. Hey, you. Thank you for coming on this powerful journey with me. I hope it was as powerful for you as it was for me. And if it was, it would mean the world to me if you rate, review, and subscribe to Powerful Stuff so I can keep bringing you the goods. We can keep going on this transformative journey together. And if there's powerful stuff that you want to share with me, with the Powerful Stuff community, tag us on Instagram at That's Powerful Stuff or The Meredith Baker. And I look forward to seeing you next week for more powerful stuff.